Hello, everyone. I know I said that this will be live, but I've written down questions, some of the interesting questions, and since I kind of will talk a little bit longer about each of the questions, I picked really the most relevant ones. I'll try to get to some of the other ones in the next time I do one of these. So the first question that came was, why do we need professional orchestras? And that's an excellent question. I think about a lot about this, and I do think that we need professional orchestras because when we get these masterpieces, or when we get some pieces composed specifically to challenge the orchestra, to get the most out of the orchestra from composer's perspective, we need an organization, an orchestra that is capable of taking on the challenge and performing it. There are composers who are for youth orchestra, for community orchestras, for various other ensembles, and those ensembles are capable of taking on those challenges. But I think as a composer, if they want to maximize and think about all the different ideas and possibilities that they want to get out of the orchestra, sometimes a youth or a community orchestra is just not capable of, because they're just not ready for that possibility. But in today's society, with the amount of professional orchestras that we have, and seeing, especially in this situation, seeing how many of them are just backing up and backing off and not being able to even pay their musicians and their staff. It's the orchestras are really in a fragile state, and it's really a tough situation. And I think we should not stop the progress, the continuing and helping and promoting professional orchestras. But one thing that we should do even more so, maybe cut down some of the concerts for some of the professional orchestra and invest into educating and really come up with all kinds of different plans and ways to educate the society. The society has to be ready. The society has to really want to be interested in the orchestra, in that culture. And I don't really think that this society is ready for it. I think that there's a small percentage of people who are interested, but as musicians we sometimes forget, because we're so closely connected with other musicians, and always part of that culture. We forget that there's a big world out there, and there are just so many people that don't even know certain instruments in orchestras, don't even know composers. They might not even know one or two composers, so the society as a whole has to be ready for that. And I think it starts from educating. But one thing that we have to keep in mind is never stopping at the highest level of composing, of performing. Both of them have to work at the same time, but we do need to invest much more and be much more active in educating the youth, so when they're up there, when they get older, they appreciate the arts and orchestra, or the orchestral music in general. So that's that. This next question is, what are you doing with no rehearsals? With no rehearsals, spending a lot of time with my son, my wife, my family, you know, doing those things, and spending a lot of time actually looking into the upcoming concerts and studying the scores and the music for that, and also catching up on various other things that I'm interested in, watching and reading various things that I'm interested in. I don't really get the opportunity, the chance to do it during the busy season. But at this moment, musically speaking, focusing on pieces for May and June concerts, and really hoping that those happen, because March and April, everything in March and April is canceled. So next question: do you really just listen to classical music? If you've followed couple of weeks, or maybe it was a week ago, I answered some questions on Instagram, and I talked about how I do listen to all kinds of other music, and I'm very much interested in all the different genres. That's really it. I don't really want to mention specifics. I'll privately message you about some of the other genres I listen to. But I love jazz. I love rock. I listen to all kinds of other genres as well. Is Mahler the best conductor composer in history? So conductor and composer. That's the great point. Mahler was a great conductor, great composer. Another great conductor composer combination, famous person, is Leonard Bernstein. Actually, who is a fantastic composer and a famous conductor as well. Esa-Pekka Salonen, if we're talking about someone who is still alive, Esa-Pekka Salonen is also a wonderful composer, conductor. And also another person that comes to mind is Pierre Boulez, who is no longer alive, but was a fantastic composer, conductor as well. So a couple that come to mind right away. There's a long list of others if we really want to dive into it and figure it out. Another one that comes to mind is Igor Stravinsky, who's conducted and also is a composer. So just a couple that come to mind. How can I become a conductor? uh, First, actually, this is really interesting because I was thinking I don't think of myself as a teacher. I'm not there yet. Maybe eventually, in decades later, I'll decide to pursue actually teaching the art of conducting. It's a very difficult job, because I've observed other conductors and teachers try to teach, and some of them have done very well, and others have not been so successful, or at least it didn't work for my style, maybe. But conductor, to become a conductor, first master the instrument that you're playing, or at least work on as much as you can. If you're 15 or 16, you're conducting. I don't know if I would promote. I think it's good. I always tell my kids, my youth orchestra kids, to come up and conduct, so they kind of have an idea of what the basics are, at least a little bit, or get an idea of what it means to even stand in front of 30 or 40 or whatever, however big the group is. But as to become a conductor, I think you need to first play in an orchestra, be part of that experience, and also make your opportunities to conduct. At least that's how I started. I started with forming my own orchestra and started conducting there. But I was 22 actually when I first even wanted to conduct or even tried conducting. So I didn't even have an idea of wanting to be a conductor early on. I know a lot of my colleagues wanted to be a conductor for years and years, and that was their passion. For me, I was 22. I wanted to do something a little bit different in music. So if you're interested, I'm happy to Skype with you and tell you basics, or talk to you about that if you're interested. When did you start playing music? I started, as far as I could remember, and from what I remember, my parents telling me I was about 8 or 9. I started flute when I was 9, and it was that's where it started. It was in Armenia. It was '96. I was 9, and it was I had a lot of breathing chronic problems, breathing, and my parents took me to all kinds of different doctors, tried to figure that out, and then we tried this other doctor who was working with homeopathic medicine and all kinds of other things, and he recommended taking on a wind instrument to help the breathing. So that's where it started. Went with the flute. My parents picked for me. I don't even think I picked the flute, and the journey continued from there. All right. When did you start? Oh, okay, I got that one. What will happen to orchestras after COVID-19? Well, the orchestras are not doing so well currently. A lot of them are kind of canceling their seasons and are not operating, and worst of all, actually not paying the musicians, which is tough. It's not blaming the orchestras and the organization, because it is a tough situation, but I hope that after this, people will be so hungry and interested in the arts that they will fill the halls, and orchestras will be overwhelmed by the amount of people who are interested in listening to concerts and supporting, and as many of my colleagues and friends, and as you've probably seen all over the news, if you're following the arts, keep supporting the arts, keep following the arts, keep supporting those organizations. Even one like on a Facebook, that's very important, or Instagram. Follow, support the arts as much as you can, and when they do have concerts, go for it and support the arts. I hope that's what happens after all of this. It is a tough situation. I'm not sure what will happen. The only message I have, the only hope that I have, is the positive of thinking that after this, people will be very much interested in the support of the arts more than ever. And I hope if you've never been to an orchestra concert, and I have friends who probably have only been to a couple of concerts, please, please, please attend a concert, go to a concert. Very important. What makes you feel most discouraged professionally, and how do you overcome it? And we've talked about this for the person who asked the question. I feel a little bit awkward mentioning the people who've asked the questions. I don't know if they want to be mentioned or not, but we've talked about this, you and I, and professionally discouraged is all the talking, I think, and it is difficult, and I've worried for the classical music field for a very long time. I think the talking has to stop. It's such a small field, and it's very disappointing to see people talking and making all kinds of negative comments about other artists and all this stuff. I think that needs to stop, and even if it doesn't stop, I think one thing that needs to happen is that you're welcome to make all the comments you want. You could say all that you want, but don't be afraid to say that in front of that person or publicly. So if you're going to say something behind closed doors, be ready to say that in front of public, or so that's the main thing. I see a lot of that, and it's very discouraging and disappointing. I hope that stops. And how do I overcome it? I try not to pay attention to it. I know it's very difficult to do that. It's something that I keep trying to learn myself. I'm not the best at it, so I'm not the best person to give advice, but that is the most discouraging thing, is all the talking, all the negativity, and all the stuff. And I think as artists, there should be, because we want to grow as humans in general, as whatever field you're in, we want to grow, want to progress, want to get better at the things that we do, the professions that we have. But I think very important to say those things and then try to find the positive, and figure out a way out of those situations. That's very important. So I don't even know if I answered that question. That's a tough question. I know we've had that discussion a number of times, and so there it is. I don't know. Hopefully this was helpful. I'll answer more questions next time we do one of these chats. So thank you so much. Thanks for listening, and next time maybe it'll be live.